Welcome to the stunning Caribbean island of Tobago, best known for its wide sandy beaches, unspoilt rainforests and its laid-back lifestyle. But this weekend it's about something a little more strenuous. This is the Tobago International Sea-to-Sea Marathon. This is a full 2 days of events on an island steeped in history, having been fought over and changed hands 31 times before 1814. Fortunately for us, the only battles that we'll be seeing are in the 5 and 10k events, the hotly contested half marathon and the pinnacle, the beautiful but brutal full marathon. The race starts here, high above the Caribbean Sea, in the heart of Tobago's Main Ridge Forest Reserve, and begins with a 500-metre descent towards the Atlantic. This is truly a unique race in a unique location. Here's Rob Walker to explain more.
Located in the south of the Caribbean, the island of Tobago is full of natural wonders, and the marathon takes in many of them. On race day, the athletes will gather on the spine of the island for the start of the marathon at the Main Ridge Forest Reserve, the oldest legally protected rainforest in the world. The act of protecting the forest back in 1776 is considered by many to be the first modern environmental action and perhaps the birth of the environmental movement as a whole. When you look at the diversity of Tobago's wildlife now, it's easy to see why this amazing place was and still is so worthy of preservation, with hummingbirds among the hundreds of species filling the forests. Tobago's not only about ancient woodlands though, as, like with the runners themselves, you descend towards the oceans, a myriad of unspoilt beaches in beautiful bays come into view. If you want room to spread out and don't feel like fighting for a sunbed, Tobago's tranquil sandy havens and warm waters are just the job. The sea itself provides a large part of the economy for the island. Fish doesn't come any fresher than this. The sea itself is an environmental wonder. Snorkelers can enjoy the reef ecosystem, which contains the largest documented brain coral in the Northern Hemisphere. The marathon itself will start at 5 a.m, beginning with 500 metres of descent in the first 7 miles. But don't be fooled. Once they reach the coast, the undulations begin, with a total of 630 metres of ascent in the race. Goodwood marks the half marathon start, with the 10k and 5k events also picking up the marathon route through the capital city of Scarborough before continuing the scenic coastal run as far as the finish. The weekend begins with those 5 and 10k events, kick-starting this festival of running with an opportunity for the locals to take to the roads, as well as a host of international visitors here to show their class. An absolutely brilliant atmosphere for those fast or slow. At the front of the field, it was a 1-2 for the Venezuelan men in the 10k, Didimo Sanchez beating Alexis Pena on the line. And there was a Venezuelan victor in the women's 10k, with Yesi Alvarez coming home number 1. Following this, the half marathon and marathon runners would retreat to the elite athletes camp at the Mount Irving Bay Resort for the press conference. There were some big names from the Caribbean, South America and East Africa lining up to compete in the main events the following morning. Amongst them, the Cuban Olympian Richard Perez, having warmed up with third in the 10K, he was ready for the main event, the marathon.
I just want to go out and race it, he says. I know it's a tough course and it's an achievement just to finish it. I've never raced here before, it's going to be exciting. So the competitors gathering for the 5 a.m. start. It's nice and cool at the moment, but remember, by the time they get to the finish, the temperatures will be expected to be up around 30-35 degrees. High level of humidity. Richard Perez looks relaxed. There's Simon Kariuki, multiple marathon winner and a sub-2:10 performer at his best. This then is the second official running of the Sea-to-Sea Marathon in Tobago. And they're underway. This stunning, undulating testing course will provide more than a twist or two of drama over the next 3 or 4 hours in Tobago. A really intriguing first 7 miles in prospect. A little bit of an incline immediately after the start line, but then it's all downhill. 500 metres of descending over the first 7 miles of the course. There's Simon Kariuki tucked in on the right-hand side with that grey strip. An experienced athlete who knows you've got to pace yourself on this course.
You can learn faster when the course is very flat and not humid, but here you must do some calculation. Because if you learn like some miles faster, the other mile will pay. So you must do something called calculation.
Wise words there from Kariuki. Now they are onto this descent. And there's Aurelia Ruto, the 28-year-old from Kenya, second in last year's Des Moines Marathon, also second in Clevedon last year. She's got some good company to chase here. Kariuki running alongside Curtis Cox. The Trinidadian local man was third in this race last year. And he's leading the charge here down this very steep descent. Pressure on the knees and on those quads. One or two of the athletes just checking their watches. It's Cox leading as they take on the descent with Kariuki, the Kenyan, in second. Well, dramatic moments were to follow these early stages of the race because Kariuki stopped 2 miles into this descent. You could just see him in the back of shot. He was ill, with the Cuban Olympian Richard Perez stopping to see whether his rival in this battle for the Sea-to-Sea Marathon was okay. That's why many in the leading pack turned their shoulders at that moment to see what was going on behind them. Fortunately, Kariuki has managed to get running again, but he does have a deficit to claw back. He's got to get his pacing right here and reattach to the lead group gradually. He looks okay at this early stage after a real scare for the man contesting his 25th marathon. There's Abdisi Sori Badada, very experienced Ethiopian, a 3:39 1500 metre runner who ran 2:10 in Warsaw in Poland just a couple of years ago. Little smile for the camera from him. And now Kariuki is in full flow once again, which is good to see. And it's a familiar battle unfolding, as it is in so many races on so many continents. The might of the East Africans, Ethiopia versus Kenya. There are plenty of others still very much in the mix. There's Aurelia Ruto leading the way in the women's race in these early stages, with Raquel Agudelo just behind her. Agudelo won the Panama 15K last autumn, but Ruto far more experienced over the marathon distance, as she has a little look over her shoulder. Contrast her short strides with the long loping presence of Guillermo Udenhout of Suriname. He's gone storming down that hill. Ruto still maintaining a steady pace. Udenhout hoping to close down on this leading 5 that includes Simon Kariuki, the Kenyan, who has now recovered from that little bout of sickness, and also Richard Perez, the Cuban Olympian. Remember, he's the Pan American Marathon champion. And just off the back of that group, maybe struggling a fraction, is Jose Diaz, the Colombian in the yellow vest. Now, this is Raquel Agudelo, who has caught up to Aurelia Ruto. Agudelo there, 3:01.3, missing the drink station, but I think the Kenyan did as well. And Ruto just checking her stride there, and she's getting a helping hand and a drink from Guswill George of Trinidad and Tobago Roadrunners. So the lead 5. Wow. Well, no wonder Badada, the Ethiopian in the bright orange vest, had a look over his shoulder, because Guillermo Udenhout was storming up to the leading 5, who now becomes 6. Still at the back, we have Jose Diaz, the Colombian, and also Richard Perez in the familiar Cuban colours of the blue shorts and the red vest. He looks fairly comfortable towards the back of that group. Udenhout has not been content to join that leading 5. He's gone away from them, clearly feeling as though he's got the measure of this steep descent as they make their way down towards the Atlantic coast. He's actually split this group a little bit, where they were running all 5 together. Now we have a few separated behind the man from Suriname. So a bold early move from Guillermo Udenhout, tracked by 5 world-class distance runners just behind him. Side by side in the battle for the elite female supremacy, Aurelia Ruto with Raquel Agudelo. And just behind them, the Nigerian-born, now representing America, Mary Acor, in her 55th marathon. Now, at last, that steep descent has finished, and they are temporarily onto the relief of a flat section as they head towards the Atlantic coast. And it looks as though Guillermo Udenhout of Suriname has run out of steam. And where we did have a group of 5 chasing him down, now there are 3. Abdisa Badada of Ethiopia, Richard Perez, the Pan American Marathon champion, and the hugely experienced 36-year-old Kenyan Simon Kariuki. A long, long way to go, but the class is rising to the top here in Tobago.
Bueno, realmente vine a ganar. Hay otros compañeros que...
Well, I came here to win, he says, but there are other athletes from Kenya and Venezuela that are also here to try and gain the victory.
Es muy similar a Cuba, donde entreno, donde he vivido.
The advantage I have is that it's very similar to where I come from and where I train. Well, here for the first time, we all get a glimpse of this magnificent coastline as the sun begins to rise. This is going to get warmer and warmer, and there are some seriously tough inclines separating one of these 3 men from victory in the second edition of this sea-to-sea marathon. Perez is quite happy just to run behind the leading 2 contenders. And here comes Jose Varela, really good running there by the Venezuelan, moving past and away from the leading 3 women, because Mary Acor, the 40-year-old, flying the flag for the United States with the shades, is now alongside Agudelo and Ruto. Richard Perez carrying a little energy gel in the left hand, and there are Badada and Kariuki leaning into yet another incline on this course. This is why it's a stunning place to come and run a marathon, but it's not a course for a personal best. They will really have to dig deep. There's Diaz, just beginning to struggle a little bit with this undulating, twisting, turning course. And in the distance, here comes the Venezuelan, Jose Varela, moving up to 5th place. He's going well as we head towards the halfway stage here in Tobago. He says, I've chosen this race because it's hard and I think it suits my style of racing. It's tough to race really fast here, and it's more about how you cope with the climate and the terrain. And I really do think this style of race suits me better than the fast, flat courses. Confident words and confident running by the Venezuelan. Meanwhile, speaking of confident running, what a push this is from Raquel Agudelo of Colombia, moving ahead and away from the vastly more experienced Kenyan Aurelia Ruto. There's a long, long way to go for this young woman, but she's decided this is her time to try and establish an unassailable lead. It's brave because she's left Ruto way behind, but the question is, has the Colombian gone too hard too early? And there's plenty of drama left in the elite men's race too. A thrilling climax in prospect here on the stunning island of Tobago.
Welcome back to the Tobago International C2C Marathon. The half marathon runners are finishing behind me, but the marathon runners are still out on the course. Let's rejoin Rob Walker.
Well, just like the full marathon, the half began a shade after 5 a.m. as the sun was beginning to rise. A beautiful course for the locals and the visitors, everybody treated to top-class Tobagan hospitality. The beautiful Atlantic coast played host to great drama. The men's race won by Stephen Mburi of Kenya, and the women's title also going to the East African nation, Grace Wambui coming out on top in that one. Meanwhile, the battle for the elite men's title in the full marathon is hotting up. They are heading through the capital, Scarborough, with the finish not too far away. And in fact, it's the Cuban, Perez, who has moved into the lead with just a shade inside 3 miles to go. Kariuki is in the distance and could still mount a comeback, but the Cuban looks fresh and full of running. Meanwhile, in the battle for the elite women's title, it looks as though Raquel Agudelo has indeed gone too hard too early. Remember, she surged away from Aurelia Ruto, the 28-year-old Kenyan, and that is such a disappointing sight. It was so brave, and you never like to see this happening to an elite athlete, but the Colombian is in all sorts of trouble here, and I think barring a miracle, she will not even make it to the finish line. That is how difficult it can be if you don't leave enough for the closing stages of a marathon. And there is Aurelia Ruto moving into the lead, the Kenyan, as the young woman from Colombia fades away into the background. Ruto is still hurting. She's working hard up this incline, but it is the Kenyan who looks as though she has run a much better paced race. Meanwhile, inside the last mile, Perez, the Cuban, but look at the shadow. The looming presence of Simon Kariuki moving through, and Perez, who won the Central American and Caribbean Games title back in 2014, as well as the Pan American Gold in 2015, he will know that the Kenyan is closing and the Kenyan is coming. Perez looked left there, but to his right is Kariuki. And remember, the Kenyan may be past his best days, but this is his 25th marathon. He's won San Diego, Panama, LA and Lima, to mention just a few of his 11 big city marathon victories. And he might not be as quick as the 2:09 he produced in Frankfurt 10 years ago, but he'll fancy he can beat the younger rival here from Cuba, and he moves through to the left, but Perez covers him, almost blocking his path here, to Kariuki's disgust. Well, there's a little bit of needle going on between these two as the finish line approaches. They're both desperate to win here. A few mind games going on between the Cuban on the left and the Kenyan on the right-hand side. Side by side, someone's going to have to make another bold move here and find something when the tank is just about empty. Who wants this the most? Who's got the acceleration and the self-belief? Neither of these men surely will want this to come down to a flat-out sprint finish, and it's Perez who's dug deep and found an advantage once again, and surely this time he will have broken the spirit of the 36-year-old Kenyan. He's got that distinctive style, the Cuban, where he leans forward and he knows the glory of the finish line is not too far away. He's really had to earn this, And once again, just as he showed at the Central American and Caribbean Games and the Pan American Championships in Toronto, this young man is a master of getting it right just when it counts. A guard of honour greeting him here at the finish line. He is absolutely delighted. He takes the second edition of the Sea-to-Sea Marathon here in Tobago and does so in fine style.
Thank you, my friend. Gracias.
A brilliant win for the Cuban. Second place this time for Simon Kariuki, who cuts a very tired figure as he reaches the finish line.
Venía pensando en una estrategia.
Perez says, I was thinking about my strategy all the time and trying to come up with some good tactics.
Él me estiraba por el medio del camino para ver si se podía ir.
The Kenyan kept trying to break away from me a lot to tire me out, but he just couldn't do it.
Y realmente no fue así.
He was going ahead a bit at the water stations, but each time I would catch him afterwards.
Y eso permitió en una.
And then at the end, the Kenyan put in a big push, but he failed, and I was able to fight back in the end, taking the win.
Aproveché para estirarle. Y así fue como gané.
Tried to catch him, but I could not go because Humed was too fast.
Well, Aurelia Ruto was the one who timed it to perfection in the women's race. 2 second-place finishes last year in Des Moines and Cleveland, but victory here today in Tobago, and you can see just how much it's taken out of her.
Every hydration station, I made sure I took water, a lot of water. So actually that is what actually made me to finish the course. Otherwise, it was really hard, very hot and humid.
Two dramatic elite races. Richa Perez, the Cuban, taking victory in the men's race by 34 seconds from Kariuki. The Dada of Ethiopia hung on for third. Aurelia Ruto, victorious in the women's race. No finish for Raquel Agudelo. Mary Acor was second, and the local girl, Jaylan Evans, picked up the bronze. But this race is not just about the elites. The locals and visitors have embraced the island and the atmosphere.
The view is breathtaking. It's really nice. The hills were my best part.
Tobagonians come out, you see them at the side of the road, they cheer you on. That's a good feeling.
We love hills. The support is always good here. That's why we sprint.
View is very nice. I love it. I love it.
It is amazing. I thought I was getting tired, but then as soon as I saw the people and I heard them cheering, I felt like a rush of energy, and that helped to push me to the finish.
It was fantastic. I will invite anybody from any part of the world to come to Tobago and run the Sea-to-Sea. The Caribbean is the place to be, babies.
That is it for a great weekend of races here on the beautiful island of Tobago. What an atmosphere, what an event, and what an island. And it's only set to get bigger and better. We'll see you back here in 2018.